Hello, fellow Rotarians and guests. I'm Lori Alton, and I'm honored to serve as your club president for the Rotary year 2021-2022. The Rotary Club of Columbus has a storied past, beginning in 1915, when a group of civic-minded people saw the need for leaders to come together to find ways to make our community better. And now, 106 years later, we're a vibrant, strong club that continues to place service above self. Our club is diverse, with members across all sectors of business, government, military, healthcare, education, nonprofit and community service, ministry, and the arts. And we come together each week as friends with a shared purpose of learning how we can be more involved in the things that matter to all of us. And we leave committed to changing our community and changing lives. As Rotarians, we are people of action, and it shows. So welcome back to Rotary. Thank you for being here, and thank you for making a difference in our community.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the November 10th meeting of the Rotary Club of Columbus. President Lori's a little bit under the weather today, so you guys are stuck with me again. Hopefully I can shake the cobwebs off and get through it. I did tell her that it's so much more fun to show up to a meeting that I didn't have to plan, so that's very good. But she is watching online. Lori, we wish you well and speedy recovery, and we welcome everybody else that's joining us today also. Please join me in saying the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tim Graham's going to come up and give the invocation in accordance to his faith tradition.
My first task is to remind you about the cans in the middle of the table. So often our prayers are filled with petitions to God, asking God for things. It's appropriate sometimes just to offer praise to God. And so I offer this short prayer written long ago, a prayer of praise from the Celtic tradition. Let us pray. If my lips could sing as many songs as there are waves in the sea, if my tongue could sing as many hymns as there are ocean billows, if my mouth filled the firmament with praise, if my face shone like the sun and moon together, if my hands were to hover in the sky like powerful eagles, and my feet ran across mountains as swiftly as the deer, all that would not be enough to pay you fitting tribute, O Lord my God. Amen.
Thank you, and do remember the cans as you return to your seats. It's now my pleasure to call on Michael Tullier to come up today and introduce our visitors and guests.
Thank you, Past President Joe. We've got a few guests with us today. First visiting us from the Muskogee Rotary Club is Sherry Cody. And then our guests include Greg Jordan, a past Rotarian who's the guest of Ray Plummer, and Erica Cottingham, who is a guest of Ben Mosher. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much. It's a wonderful tradition of our club to each week have an opportunity to honor a soldier in recognition of COL Ralph Puckett Soldier of the Week. And so it's now my pleasure to call on Anthony Randall with today's guest.
Good afternoon. There we go. Try for the third time. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. It's my honor to introduce to us today Sergeant First Class Javier Perez. So Sergeant First Class Perez is a 91 X-ray maintenance supervisor, and he serves as an instructor and as the non-commissioned officer in charge for the Center for Human Rights and Democracy at the Western Hemisphere Institute for Security Cooperation, better known around here as WINSEC, at Fort Benning, Georgia. So Sergeant First Class Perez has a distinguished military career over 23 years, and he has served in infantry, chemical, combat operations, and special operations units as what we call a battalion maintenance control sergeant. For veterans, they know what that means. So he's a Sergeant First Class. He basically outranks most NCOs and soldiers in the Army. He doesn't outrank any officer in the Army when it comes to officer rank. But if you're a young lieutenant and you make the mistake of going into a motor pool and thinking you outrank this man, you're in very bad situation. So there is one place he outranks everyone, and it's in the motor pool. So he's very proficient at that. He's served in several different units, to include 5 combat deployments, also in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom, and he also has 2 one-year tours in the Republic of South Korea. So he's well-traveled, and he's been an excellent leader in that. I want to read off a couple of his awards. He, in schools, he's graduated from the Senior Leader Course, the Advanced Leader Course, the Warrior Leader Course, Anti-Terrorism Officer Course, and the Army Basic Instructor Course. And with that, today, he's privileged to teach human rights at WINSEC to Central American and South American officers. He has the Joint Commendation Medal, the Army Commendation Medal with 5 oak leaf clusters, and the Army Achievement Medal with 4 oak leaf clusters. And he's also ascertained through his deployments the Afghanistan Campaign Medal, the Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, the Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal, and the Korean Service Defense Medal. He's also been awarded 3 times for the Non-Commissioned Officer Professional Development Ribbon. So Sergeant Perez was born in Catano, Puerto Rico, and he joined the Army in February of 1998. He attended basic training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And he's married to his wife, Gina Maria, and they have 1 daughter, Shali, and 2 sons, Shalim and Kevin. Would you please welcome Sergeant Perez today? So Sergeant Perez, is part of the tradition here at the Columbus Rotary, I have a few things for you. The first one here is a challenge coin. So you know what to do with this. I'm sure there's not many people at WINSEC that have a Rotary challenge coin, so that's good for at least 1 free beverage the next dining in that you have. There you go. We also have for you here a passport to the arts. And a part of our gratitude for you and your service and your family's service to our country, this passport ticket has a total value of about $286. And you have the option, and the folks that support this, you can go to some of the great events here in Columbus. So this is sponsored by the River Center, the Columbus Symphony Orchestra, the National Infantry Museum, Columbus State University's Theater Department, and the Springer House, which is one of the oldest performance houses in the country. So a great opportunity. That sounds like a great date night after a long week at work. All right. The last thing we're going to give you today is the COL Ralph Puckett Junior Soldier of the Week certificate. And you can hold that right there. We'll get a picture of that in a minute. And more importantly, one of Colonel Puckett's books. So this is a book called Word for Warriors, a professional soldier's notebook. And Colonel Puckett, who's a personal friend of mine for about the last 12 or 13 years, is probably one of the most phenomenal leaders that you'll ever meet. He was recently awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions in Korea. And today, I have the privilege of dedicating this book today, so I want to read that. So this book today, it's dedicated to the veterans and families of the Columbus, Georgia Rotary Club 200. So all veterans in here, as we celebrate Veterans Day tomorrow, this book's dedicated to all of you and for your families. Here you go.
I didn't know that I had the floor. Thank you very much. This is an honor for me and for my unit. We appreciate what you do for the community and to support us as veterans and soldiers. We understand that most of you guys went through the ranks too, like we're doing right now, and we appreciate everything that you guys did in your time. It was the foundation that gave us to keep going and support this wonderful nation that we call America. Thank you very much.
Sergeant First Class Perez, on behalf of our membership, I too want to extend our thanks to you and gratitude for you joining us today. You're always welcome to come back and join us. We ask that you please extend our gratitude also to the men and women that serve alongside you there on post. So thanks again. It's always a great day in Rotary when we have an opportunity to introduce a new member to our club, and today we get that opportunity twice. It's my pleasure to call on Roy Plummer with those introductions now.
Mr. President and fellow Rotarians, I have the pleasure of introducing our newest Rotarians. First, it's Mrs. Vivian Bishop. Vivian is no stranger to Columbus. She worked for over 28 years as the clerk of the municipal court. As a matter of fact, guess what? She is a mother. She is a worker in this community. Vivian never meets a stranger. You may not know her now, but when you meet her, you will know that she will always leave a stamp for you to remember. Second, we have Reggie. Reggie is, he occupies the same position that Vivian had as the clerk of municipal court. Reggie is married to Dr. Valerie Thompson, a renowned pastor in Columbus, Georgia. As a matter of fact, she could not be here, neither could the congressman be here. He sends his regrets, and Valerie sends his regrets. Reggie belongs to a fraternal organization that I cannot pronounce the name. Kappa Alpha Psi. Of course, most of you knowing that because I'm an Alpha, it's difficult to pronounce other names. And so Rotarians, help me welcome both Vivian and Reggie to our club. Vivian, I give you both a pin. Wear them proudly because they open doors.
That's great.
President?
Thank you. Thank you so much. And guys, joining this club, that we're Club 200 out of over 35,000 clubs worldwide. We're in our 106th year. So a strong legacy of service for Columbus and the surrounding community. We welcome you in joining us in that legacy of service, and we look forward to serving alongside
As a
you.
matter of fact, Mr. President, Vivian, she was a member of Rotary. She's no stranger to Rotary, but because of the commitment with her spouse, she had to take a leave of absence, and she's back now.
Well, welcome back to the Rotary family. I'm glad to have both of you. Thanks again. It's now my pleasure to call on Ian Bond and Geisha Haddad to come up with our newest GRSP recognitions. We've got several to present today.
All right, I'd like to ask Nelson Kittle, Phyllis Aaron, Jason Cooper, and Bill White to join us. And past President Joe and fellow Rotarians, it's always a great day to recognize giving to the Georgia Rotary Student Program Foundation. And today we're going to give 4 recognition awards, 2 Will Watt Fellowships, which represent a cumulative total of $1,000 contribution to the foundation, a Hugh Thomas Jr. Fellowship, which represents $2,500 cumulative donation to the foundation, and a Kendall Wisiger Fellowship, which represents $5,000 cumulative to the foundation. So Geisha is going to start distributing them. So firstly, let's see, we've got Jason on the end there and Bill. So they get the Will Watt Fellowship. So the color white is in the way. Okay, and then if you go get the next ones. And the Hugh Thomas Award is for Phyllis Aaron. And the Kendall Wisiger is for Nelson Kittle. So please give a big thank you to the generosity research
Great. Yeah. While they're getting their photo, thank you guys so much. That is so important that we continue to support GRSP. It's so wonderful to have Geisha with us this year. It's our student after not having a student with us last year, and our club has a long legacy of supporting that program, and glad to be able to recognize you today with your gifts. We had some good news in Columbus this week. There wasn't officially a news segment today, but John Stacy did want to make sure that everybody knew that today is the birthday of the U.S. Marine Corps. So he wanted to point that out, but we do think this being a week of Veterans Day, we thank all of our soldiers, all of our veterans here in this club, in the community for your service. All of you are to be commended for your service and sacrifice for our country. But CDC guidance in Muskogee County we've improved in COVID numbers enough that we are now considered medium risk for COVID transmission. What that means is that those that are vaccinated, CDC guidance indicates that it's okay for vaccinated people to be intermingled both indoors and outdoors without danger of transmission. We, for our purposes inside the club, we've adjusted protocols. You'll notice that the line today, we're serving ourselves again. We have installed sanitation stations or sanitizer stations. So if you go through that, use that right before you grab the utensils to serve yourself in the line. We're doing that just to speed things up. We encourage folks to wear your mask if you have them with you, please, as you're going through the line. But once you're through the line, you're welcome to take off your mask if you choose to do so. Those that still wish to continue wearing masks certainly are welcome to continue to do so also. But wanted to give that update for you. We have coming up on December 8th is our club's annual meeting. This is a meeting every year where we conduct business as a club, where we elect officially new club officers and directors. There has been a nominating committee that has been selected to help select those positions. That nominating committee is going to be chaired by past President Greg Camp. I am also on that nominating committee, as well as past President Ron Mullins. So those of you that have ideas for who might be effective in leadership in the club, we ask that you pass those along to us so that those names can be considered as we go through this very important process for our club. Football results. We had another great week of football last week. As a result of the games that were played, we are now over $12,000 raised for the Rotary Foundation. So thank you very much to all of you that are participating. Those that still want to get in on the action, please, there's still time to participate. We'd love to have you. I will go on record here in front of God and all of you as witnesses that if Georgia wins the national championship, I will double my pledge to the Rotary Football Foundation. And I encourage all of my Georgia fans to do the same. That would be wonderful. Somebody had told me that sort of in jest, saying that there weren't enough souls to sell in the Southeast after the Braves, victory in the World Series to also get Georgia a national championship. But I'm hoping that the Braves have broken the glass ceiling, the curse that has always infected Georgia sports teams, and this is the year. So that's what I'm hoping for anyway on that. There are some games of significance. Oh, Lamar. Yes, sir. They do have a really good offense this year. I will. Well, if we can keep up with the total score, I'll do it. I'll do it for you. Call me out hold me to it on that. There are some games of significance this week. Georgia goes up to Knoxville to play Tennessee. We're hoping to avoid golf balls and mustard when we go up there. Auburn is going to be playing Mississippi State, so that should be a really good game. And Jean wanted to make sure that everybody knew to come next week because President Lori and her daughter Alston are going to be doing commentary regarding the upcoming Georgia Tech game on Thanksgiving week. So that should be a lot of fun. So encourage everybody to come back with that. We do have Friday of this week, last announcement, and then I'll defer the microphone. We've got Rotary and Pete Jones is going to be leading the Rotary Breakfast Mix. That's still done via Zoom. Starts at 8 a.m. Friday morning. I hope that all of you will be able to join that and hear what Pete has to say, so that'll be great. Head table today, we've got Tim Grant brought the invocation. It's now my pleasure to turn it over to past President Ben Williams to introduce today's program.
Thanks, past President Joe. This football season might get expensive for you, it sounds like, but that's all good. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be asked today to introduce our program, which is going to be brought to us by fellow Rotarian Greg Kemp.
We all know Greg as an active member of this club for many years, as our club's past president in 2013 and 2014, and as a Mary Reed Award winner in 2017. He's been extremely active in our community, providing his talents and leadership to many organizations and his church since he's become a civilian within the community. But what I'd like to do today is also tell you a few other things about Greg that you may or may not know. He grew up in a military family where his father served in the Army, and one of his early experiences was that of being in a shore battery on December 7th, 1941 in Pearl Harbor. Fortunately, he survived that day and went on later to have Greg, which we're all happy for. His father served many years in the Army and retired as a colonel. Greg, like many people, young folks whose parents were in the military, moved around quite a bit. He ended in Virginia, in McLean, Virginia, where he graduated from high school, and then received an appointment to West Point, where he was a record-holding member of the track and cross-country teams there. He also later attended Georgia Tech and earned a master's degree in mathematics. Greg was commissioned a second lieutenant of infantry from the military academy, and like so many of his classmates, was soon on his way to Vietnam, where he served as a platoon leader and company commander in the 1st Cavalry Division. For his service in Vietnam, he was awarded the Bronze Star with V device for valor. After that, a few years later, he served as the exchange officer with the Royal Infantry Centre, Australian Royal Infantry Centre in New South Wales, Australia. Greg had many assignments of increasing responsibility in the Army, and then arrived back at Fort Benning, where he served the last 2 years on active duty as Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army Infantry Center in Fort Benning. After retiring from the Army, Greg went into the civilian world, and he joined Columbus Bank and Trust and served as a senior vice president there, and then with TSIS. After a few years, because of his love for the military, he joined a small group of people who were planning and working on building a new National Infantry Museum. Also in that small group of people were a few other Rotarians, namely Newt and Phyllis Aaron and Ryan Clemens, who were very instrumental in making that facility in South Columbus happen. This entire group worked for many, many years to create the Infantry Museum, but the topic for today's program, its idea, its planning, and its execution was 100% Greg Camp's. Please join me in welcoming our fellow Rotarian, Greg Camp.
Thank you very much, Ben. That's almost hard to talk after that. That was very generous. I appreciate that. I know the program said the National Infantry Museum, and the National Infantry Museum is in very, very capable hands with Pete Jones and Andy Redmond, and I'm not about to talk about the museum right now, but what I'm going to talk to you about is what we refer to as the sacred soil ceremony. And this is something that took place at the museum on March 19th of 2009. So the idea for the soil ceremony really came as we were browsing through the internet, always browsing through the internet, looking mostly for donors, but other ideas about the museum. And we came across this Navy memorial that was being created up in New England. And part of their dedication ceremony is they have a fountain there, and they had water from the 7 seas. And they poured water from each of the 7 seas into this fountain as part of the memorial. And we thought that is a really good idea. We ought to be able to do something for our museum that's akin to that. So the idea was, what do we have that's like that? And it wasn't surgery scientists to figure out that soil would be ours. Infantrymen are ground pounders. That's one of their many names. So we decided that, yeah, we'll gather soil from some of these legendary battlefields where infantrymen have fought and bled and died, in fact. The question then was which battlefields, because there's hundreds of these battlefields, thousands probably around the world where infantrymen have fought. But again, that wasn't a hard decision, because if you've been to the museum, you know that our signature exhibit is called The Last 100 Yards, and it takes you on a journey as infantrymen have fought the last 100 yards from Yorktown all the way up to Afghanistan and Iraq today. And when you go through that last 100 yards exhibit, you feel like you're actually there. There's 8 dioramas that make you feel like you've actually been at the battlefield at that site as you go up the ramp. So it was pretty clear that those were the 8 battles that we would pick to get the soil. So the first 2 battles, which are the battle at Redoubt number 10 at Yorktown, Alexander Hamilton was the commander of troops there, and the battle at Antietam, were pretty easy for us to get. I mean, we literally just drove to the battlefields. We had arranged prior to going there with the park rangers that we wanted to do this. They were very supportive. They took us to Redoubt number 10. We got soil from Yorktown, and then they took us to Burnside Bridge has a tree there that's referred to as the witness tree, because at the end of the battle that day, it was the only thing that remained. It's the only thing that witnessed the carnage of that battle, and it's grown into a massive, 160-70-year-old sycamore tree today. So we took soil from the base of the witness tree. The other 6 battles were more problematic, though, because they were all overseas. So Soissons in France was our World War I battle. It's on the ramp. Normandy from the Pacific, from the European theater, and Corregidor from the Pacific theater are the 2 battles on the ramp. The Korean battle is the last great bayonet charge from the Korean War. Landing Zone X-ray was our Vietnam battle on the ramp, which is where General Moore and Sergeant Major Plumley fought in the movie that was made famous with We Were Soldiers, and then Afghanistan and Iraq, where we had a Bradley fighting vehicle that was actually damaged in that battle. So we had the battles that we wanted to get the soil from. Turns out that you got to get a license to import soil, so I went over to Casita, to the Department of Agriculture, and I became a licensed soil importer. I got a five-year license to import soil. And to import soil, you have to put the soil in a cloth bag that's inside of a plastic bag that's inside of a box that has a very noticeable yellow and green tag on the outside so that you know it's soil. You can only import it 2 places, either Miami or JFK, because that's where the soil importers are supposed to be. When it comes there, it's supposed to be the case that the soil importer will recognize that this is soil that's being imported, will take out the cloth bag, will put it in an oven at 250 degrees for some period of time to kill anything that might be in the soil, and then send it on to us. Worked about half the time. Oftentimes, it would go back to the sender and would come back. We finally found a gentleman down in Miami who was very good, and we told everybody to put attention, this particular individual, and we got our soil. The idea, though, was, who's going to get this soil? So everyone was a little different. The soil at Soissons we got through a contact here in Columbus. Mrs. Halleck, who lives at Spring Harbor, is part French. Her grandmother was French, and she has some really good French friends. And one of them, Eveline, went to Soissons with her daughter and got soil from Soissons and sent it to us. We had a friend named Cole Kingseed who did battlefield tours of Normandy. He had been the previous director of history at West Point, and Cole got us soil from Normandy. Corregidor was one of the hardest ones that we had. We knew nobody in the Pacific that we could rely on to get that, so we just sent a blank letter to the attaché there and said, hey, this is what we're trying to do. And to our great fortune, one of the members of his staff, a sergeant first class, had just come from being a drill sergeant at Fort Benning and said, I'll do that. And we got the soil from Corregidor. The Korean soil was also fortuitous. This was in the 2008 timeframe that we were gathering this for the 2009 ceremony, and we had a couple of Olympic gold medal shooters from the Army Marksmanship Unit here, and they were making a goodwill tour of Army bases around the world, and they were scheduled to go to Korea. So we got a hold of our friends at the Army Marksmanship Unit and said, please go to this battlefield and get soil for us from Korea, and we were able to get that soil. The soil from Vietnam we actually got from Joe Galloway. He and General Moore had gone back to the battlefield LZ X-ray in 1993 for a documentary, for a ABC, I think, documentary. And he'd gotten some soil then, and he gave some soil to us for that. And then the soil from Afghanistan and Iraq was one of those that, we had a young captain that we knew really well, and we asked him to send us soil. And this is where we found out that it only worked half the time. He'd send us some soil, and 2 weeks later, they'd say, Allward, you got a package, it's soil from Afghanistan. He'd send it to us again, he'd get it back again. But finally, we had a VIP that was going over on a military aircraft, and so we sort of cheated and got that one in. And this stays here, please. I'm not sure what the statute of limitation is on that. So we had all the soil, and then the question was, where will we put it? Well, my first thought was, well, we'll just put it in the middle of the parade ground. That's an obvious place to put it, in the middle of the parade ground. And as so often happens, the sergeant's major said, hey, sir, I think we got a better idea. Said, we're going to graduate all these young soldiers on this parade ground. Why don't you seed the pass and review line, that's the final march line with the soil? So if you've ever been to a parade, you know that the final thing that in any parade that they do is the soldiers march across the final review line in front of the dignitaries. They pop their chest up, they do an eyes right, the commander salutes, and they're paying tribute to the dignitaries that are at the ceremony. In this case, all the dignitaries would be their family members who have come from all 50 states to watch the transformation of their soldier. So we said, great idea. Why didn't we think of that? But so we now knew where we were going to put it. We had the soil, and the question was, who's going to spread it? So we decided that what we'd really like to do to make this a special ceremony is have either a hero or a descendant of a hero of every one of those battles spread the soil. So this was about a 2-year process in order to find and then get people to help us do this. So we were able to get Douglas Hamilton, who's the 5th generation grandson of Alexander Hamilton, to spread soil from Yorktown. From Antietam, we wanted a descendant of both the Union and the Confederate Army. So we had Dirk Kempthorne, who was a former governor and senator from Idaho and Secretary of the Interior, whose great-grandfather, Charles Kempthorne, was in the 3rd Wisconsin Infantry as a Union soldier. And we had Henry Benning Pease, a descendant of Henry Louis Benning, who was also at the witness tree, the battle at the witness tree for Antietam. For Soissons, for World War I, we were able to get George York, who is the son of Sergeant Alvin York, and those of us of our generation would remember the movie Sergeant York, the most decorated soldier in World War I. And then we had a second soil spreader for World War I, Samuel Parker Moss, and his grandfather, Samuel Parker, earned the Medal of Honor at Soissons and was the most decorated officer in World War I. For Normandy, we were able to get Theodore Roosevelt IV, whose grandfather, Theodore Roosevelt Jr., was one of 4 men who earned the Medal of Honor on D-Day. For Corregidor, we had Kirk Davis, whose father, Charles Davis, earned the Medal of Honor in the Pacific Theater. And for Korea, we had Colonel Ola Lee Mize, who was a Medal of Honor recipient. And we also had General Sun Yat-pak. And General Pak would be the equivalent of George Washington in the Republic of South Korea. He was literally the most revered person in the Republic of South Korea. He was a young 30-year-old division and corps commander during the Korean War, would later become the first 4-star general in their army, the first chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, twice earned what would be our equivalent to the Medal of Honor. And General Pak was 88 years old at the time, but he flew from South Korea and joined Colonel Mize and spread soil from Korea. For Landing Zone X-ray, we had Sergeant Major Plumley and General Moore, and they literally stole the show. And then for Afghanistan and Iraq, we had Sergeant Major Marvin Hill, who I think this year is actually a Doughboy recipient, but at that time, he was the Command Sergeant Major for General Petraeus, Senior Enlisted Advisor to Central Command that commands all the soldiers in Afghanistan and Iraq, and he spread soil from both of those places. So now we had the soil spreaders. The question was, who are we going to get to narrate this ceremony? I had breakfast one morning with Sergeant Major Plumley and Sergeant Major Plass, and I was saying to Sergeant Major Plumley, wouldn't it be great if we could get Sam Elliott to narrate this, because Sam Elliott played Sergeant Major Plumley in the movie We Were Soldiers. And Sergeant Major Plumley, in his deep voice, said, "You want his phone number?" I said, yeah. So he gave me his cell phone. So I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, how can I get enough information out when I call him to know what I'm talking about before he hangs up? So, District Camp, I'm from the National Infantry Museum, I'm talking about a soil ceremony. And I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do this. And about that time, I get the phone call on my flip phone. I put it up, unknown. And there's this deep voice that says, "Greg, this is Sam Elliott. I thought you were supposed to call me." I'm going like, "Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir." But that began a dialogue with him. I would say no less than 6 or 8 times did we converse about the narrative for each one of these battles. So each soil ceremony would have a narrative that talked about the battle and also talked about the people that were spreading the soil and the significance of them. So it was, as Sam told me, that's a lot of words. He's sort of the king of the one-liners. But he said, it's a lot of words. But he took this very, very personal, and he edited that, made it more concise, made it more powerful, added things into it. He took this pro bono volunteer job as seriously, I'm sure, as anything that he had ever done in Hollywood. I knew that when all these 8 other, actually we had 10 people with 2 on a couple of battles came, I would be so occupied trying to meet them, greet them, brief them, and so forth, that I would not be able to escort Sam Elliott. But it is wonderful when you work in a place like I do. Every single woman in our organization offered to escort him. In fact, 4 women who weren't even in our organization offered to escort him. So I knew I was going to make one person happy or everybody else mad. So I said, "Ben, would you escort Sam?" Which he did a very good job of. So what I'd like to do now, though, is I would like to play just one of those excerpts, one of the battles, the battle at Yorktown. Ryan's going to run this. It's just about a minute and a half, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about it when he finishes. Go ahead, Ryan.
When our nation was but a vision of its future greatness, the Continental Congress on June 14, 1775, authorized the formation of 10 companies of light infantry. That was the birth of our nation's military. 6 years later, on the night of October 14, 1781, Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Hamilton led a bayonet charge over the abatis to capture Redoubt Number 10 at Yorktown in the culminating battle of our war for independence. At this time, Mr. Douglas Hamilton, the 5th generation grandson of Alexander Hamilton, will spread soil taken from Redoubt 10 at Yorktown. A granite paver is now being placed on the site. There's an inscription of the battle, an encased window of soil for posterity.
So that was repeated for the other 7 battles, And as you notice there was a soldier in period uniform that escorted the soil presenters on each one of those. And that paver with the small encased window of soil remains there today. So while this only happened that one time, if you were to go to a parade next week or the week after, you'll hear the announcer say to the families that are gathered there, at the end of this ceremony, your soldier will march across sacred soil that was taken from Redoubt number 10 at Yorktown, where Alexander Hamilton fought the defining battle of our Revolutionary War, and go through all 8 battles like that. So when the ceremony is over and the soldiers have marched past that and the families come down onto the parade ground, they can see, you know, this black granite paver and this small window of sandy soil that'll say, you know, June 6, 1944, and they know that their soldiers just marched across a small portion of Omaha Beach. And what we tell people is that American soldiers have protected our freedoms and liberties in the past, in the present, and in the future. And this ceremony marks those soldiers who have been in training as being part of our future. And when they finish that march in review, pass in review, they are not part of the present. So this culminates their transition from the future to the present. So it's really it's a moving ceremony. I think many of you have been there, many of you have seen it. I think the actual ceremony is very good. Ryan's going to put it on our website. It's about 20 minutes. There's a YouTube thing, so you can see more of Sam Elliott. You can see more of the other soil presenters that did this particular event. And it's now 13 years ago, but it's still relevant today. So I think I'm almost out of time, but if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to try to entertain a question. Okay, thank you.
Greg, thank you so much. What a powerful, powerful story to know that is here in our community, that legacy of service. Thank you so much to you and Ben and all the folks that made that possible. What a tremendous gift for our community and for our country. Thanks again for those of you that were able to join us. For those of you that are watching online, we hope to see you here in the room soon. I look forward to having that time of fellowship with you. President Laurie, we continue to wish you well in your recovery from your illness. We are going to have a replay of today's program on Facebook and YouTube shortly after the program. I'll remind you about the breakfast mix with Pete Jones on Friday. To quote President Laurie, let's go make a difference.